Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit from Epic Fail Whale and says, Am I the arsehole for refusing to pay my sister's wedding expenses after she called my child a mistake? Hi guys, so I just created this profile just for this. I have a main account I use for my art. I don't really know how to post on this sub though, so please excuse any mistakes. Also, I think it's important to give a trigger warning, as this had violence and death involved, and I know from personal experience that it can be triggering. So I, female 32 Diana, am the eldest of 5 siblings. I've taken on the role of the family caretaker for as long as I can remember. I helped our parents until their passing, and frankly, it's exhausting. Dad died of brain cancer 3 years ago, and it was heartbreaking to watch him deteriorate over time. My mum passed peacefully overnight after a long hard battle with breast cancer earlier this year. Fuck cancer, indeed. So, as the oldest, I just sort of became the de facto parent. I don't mind as I love my siblings, and it's kind of my thing to big sister friends and family a lot. I'm sort of ship's counselor and I financially help out my family. I don't mind as I work in tech, have a side gig doing art and inherited land and money from mum and dad. All that to say, it's no real loss. A few years ago, I adopted my cousin's Charlie, male 45 child, who I will just use her nickname, Decker. My baby loves kickboxing, after my cousin went to prison for murdering Decker's mother in an alcohol and drug-fueled rage. Which is too long a story to add here. It was a chaotic year of mourning and paperwork and court hearings, but the adoption was finalized when Decker was 5. Now she's a happy, healthy 13-year-old who calls me mum. She's in therapy and has been since I legally could send her, as she witnessed her mother's death. And I couldn't be prouder of how resilient she is. She's my girl, my rock star, my whole heart, and I call her that, literally my heart. Fast forward to my sister's, Clara, female 30, upcoming wedding. I was thrilled for her at first, and she asked to be maid of honor. I cried in joy and offered for my wife, Honey, because we like the Incredibles, lol, female 40, and I to pay for it. Don't worry, I asked Honey first. But during a bachelorette dinner I set up, she made a hurtful comment about my daughter, calling her a mistake and saying I shouldn't have taken her in. I stared at her and asked what she meant, and she said it wasn't like I was supposed to even have kids, as I am married to another woman. Then said, no hate or anything, and laughed, but then she doubled down that Decker is literally damaged and a handful. Guys, Decker is the sweetest child alive. I mean, she's a teen, so yeah, sometimes she can get challenging or rebellious here or there. But when I say she is my whole heart, I mean it. She made us a family and made our house a home. She smiles easy, cries openly, and has the emotional intelligence I wish I had myself. She always asks, how are you doing? And she really means it, willing to listen to people. But she's a damaged mistake. I felt like a character in a dark, twisted episode of a sci-fi show. Defending my choice to adopt felt like fighting the Borg, like I just wouldn't assimilate. I didn't laugh it off with my sister and her friends. I just stared at her in pure disbelief. I think she knew I was hurt because she quickly changed the subject. I said I better get home, paid for everything in 3 more rounds, and went home to my family. My sister came over the next day to yell at me for leaving and cutting them off after the 3 rounds I paid for. She said I owe her a do-over for ruining the whole weekend because I can't take a joke. Honey, who I of course told what happened, asked my sister to repeat exactly what she said about our daughter. My sister refused and kept calling Decker Charlie's child, and I just was holding back so many tears. I told my sister that I wouldn't be contributing a dime to her wedding expenses, and I won't stop helping her pay her rent up until she moves in with her husband, but I won't be in or pay for the wedding of a person who sees my child as a mistake. Honestly, I was ready to go full on Jedi and sever that connection, but Honey helped me temper myself. My sister lost it, threw the can of soda water we gave her at me, screamed, how am I supposed to pay for this? And I said, you have over a year, you can save up. so left, shoving Honey out of the way in the process and blew up our sibling group chat. My other siblings are split. Some think I'm overreacting with cutting off funds for the wedding, while others agree that my sister crossed the line and needed the wake-up call. Now, I feel bad for my sister. I do love her and she is distressed by this. But I can't shake the feeling that standing up for my daughter is more important. Am I the arsehole for refusing to pay for a wedding after that? I'm adding this in edit option. I've been working on my work project at a local brewery. I've been silently sobbing and reading the comments. Also, wow, so many comments. I was trying to reply to everyone, but I honestly ran out of steam. I sent this post to my wife and also just bracing myself to talk to Decca tonight. I want to ask her if her aunt has done anything or said anything cruel to or about her. I am wishing hard that she's just confused by our questions and remains oblivious of the shitstorm. I love my heart. I want her to always remain the bright, fun, loving, encouraging person she is. I don't want her to know anything about what her aunt has said. I text my sister if she meant this, if she really sees me, my wife and our daughter that way, or was she just drunk and stupid and doubled down in embarrassment. That said, I don't want her near Decca anytime soon. I feel so lost. I wasn't planning on ever being a parent and there is no fucking manual for this. What the fuck do I even do? Wish me luck for tonight. I will need it because if Decca tells us her aunt has been cruel to her face, we'll have to hold my wife back from swinging on my sister. The first commenter said to OP, if your sister couldn't afford her own wedding, then she shouldn't be a homophobic, child-hating monster. Decca didn't ask to witness her mother be murdered, or for a sperm donor to be a murderer. But frankly, that doesn't seem to be the core issue. The core issue is that your sister is homophobic. She wholeheartedly believes that only the most broken, unwanted, irredeemable child could end up with lesbians for parents. Likely seems to think that all the straight couples rejected Decca first. As if that's how it even works. Decca being raised by you and Honey is what's wrong. She's insulting you and your wife by insinuating there's no way lesbians could raise a healthy, functional child. This is an attack on your marriage and sexuality as much as it's an attack on Decca herself. If she hates lesbians to the point she wholeheartedly believes they shouldn't be parents, then why would she even want your money? If she despises you for your sexuality, does she even love and respect you? If she claims BS that she loves you despite your sexuality, call her out for being homophobic, not the arsehole. Another commenter says, exactly. Why'd you even pay her rent? She can work or move in with her fiance now. After showing her true face, I would not give her a dime. She's horrible, not the arsehole naturally. Tiki Effect says, not the arsehole. I'm surprised you didn't point out the only mistake I have made was to think you were a loving aunt and sister. She does not see you as a person. She sees you as money. I bet she's upset you adopted your girl because now how will she inherit anything? She said you shouldn't even have a child, like you never could have wanted to adopt, or maybe you and your wife wanted a donor sperm. No, she thought because you married a woman, you would never have kids. Then your money wouldn't be given to her and your other siblings. Opie said I never considered that, but yeah, we are child free and glad of it before we got our girl. But I do remember when the adoption was complete, we had a full party, a sort of adoption day, and we celebrate that anniversary every year. It's coming up soon. I talked of never thinking I would change my will, but I did. I wanted to be sure that if I got hit by a bus or somehow final destination and something terrible happens to Honey, there is a trust and funds for Decca to be physically okay, housed, clothed, etc. There is even a fund for her therapy up until she is 25. She gets our house and our cabin. She gets almost everything. Of course, my siblings would get things, but less now that we have Dec. If that's the reason my sister resents my child, then there is some house cleaning I need to do. And there was many others going down the money route as well as some kind of jealousy because, you know, you've always been like the head of the family kind of thing. And now your focus is on your child, rightfully so. And this is a 30-year-old who's making these comments. I was just like, oh, dearie me. And I'm glad some of the comments were saying, you know, talk to your daughter in this because we've seen absolute horror stories in the past where there's like been little prods in the background, like the sister could be saying stuff to Decca in the background, horrible stuff. It might not be the case, but, you know, it's always best to make sure. But OP comes in with an update and says, I'm trying to keep this short. Honey and I took Decca out to the local Oktoberfest celebrations. She had a blast, did crafts, danced to music, had beer. It was not beer, in a pint glass, and generally had a great time. On the ride home, my wife broached the long-awaited topic. We asked her how she felt about Grandma's passing, then went into how everyone handles things differently. We asked if Mama, me, or Mummy, Honey, ever was hurtful, and she named a couple of moments we've been snappy or wouldn't let her do things, like a party at 2 a.m. But no, nothing else. We asked about Clara, and she got quiet. Honey just looked at me, but I was driving, so I just said, "You can tell us anything, you know that," and she clammed up. I got my girls home and hugged Decca and went to the den. About 2 hours later, my wife came downstairs to me and said Decca is in bed but not asleep and I should talk to her. I asked why and she simply said that Decca is willing to talk about it. I went up. Decca was ready for bed in her PJs and reading. I just sat down on the side of the bed and asked her how she was. She just said, "Mum told you, huh?" I told her I didn't know anything and Decca then said that Clara makes her uncomfortable and said hurtful things. When my wife and I weren't around, Clara would call her the lost puppy or the stray. And once Decca remembers her to have told her to her face, "You're not real family." And that once Honey and I get a real child, we will dump her. I can't explain the rage, the absolute, total and complete red I saw as my daughter broke down, telling me that she behaves so well and is obsessed with grades so she can prove she is worth loving, worth keeping. After calling my wife, we sat her down and told her that she is the best thing that ever happened to us, and that even if we do have more children, she's our firstborn and our love. I cried and held her, telling her she was my whole heart and that nothing will ever change that. She saved us, and I'm so proud of her and us, and all we've grown to become. I can't ever stop loving her. Neither can her mum. We love her more than air. That will never change. Then I explained that Auntie was wrong for this. Auntie is jealous of her, jealous of how much we love her. Auntie needs help, but we can't give her that help, so she won't be around for a while. Decca asked us to stop talking to her like a child, so I was blunt. She's my sister and I love her. You're my daughter and I love you more. I told her my sister was wrong and hateful. I'm sorry that she didn't feel she could come to her mum or I, but she can every time, anytime. We will choose her, always. Decca asked me if it's her fault I hate Clara, and I just told her hate is a choice, and I don't hate Clara. I do love her, but sometimes loving a person means you correct them. Actions have consequences. My daughter got quiet and handed me her phone, and Clara had been texting her awful things since she left my home. I can't even type them because I want to throw things, but it's when I read my fucking sister texting my teenage daughter, "Go tell your so-called mum like a snitch and prove me right." I took a screenshot and texted it to myself. Decca fell asleep around midnight and my wife and I went to bed. I texted my sister the screenshot and said, "You come into my house as my sister and treat my child like this? No. Mum and Dad will be ashamed of you. This is not how you treat any child, let alone your own niece. I've loved you since as long as I can remember. I know you were not raised to treat children so terribly, but as of now, you are not accepted in my home. You will not speak to or contact me, my wife, or my child. I will give you the money for October, Clara, but November on, that's your responsibility. I'm no longer going to help. I'm sorry. This breaks my heart, but you crossed a serious and unforgivable line. Decca is my daughter. I am her mum. Do not doubt me here, and I want to be clear. If you ever come sideways at my family again, or contact my daughter at all, I will take legal recourse. From today on, we are low contact. If you try to make this into a bigger issue, it will be no contact. If you don't understand, here are resources to help spell it out. I love you, D." Crafty Special says on the back of that, "I would also send the screenshots to your other siblings so they can see what your sister is sending to an innocent child." Top Put says absolutely. Sunlight disinfects. Let everyone have the real details on how their sister gets off on terrorizing their niece. Let Clara have to own her actions in the light of day. Let the people who supported Clara explain to everyone else why what she told her child is alright. Sunlight disinfects. Left Kangaroo says she should also send it to the fiancé so he knows exactly what type of woman he's about to marry. Unusual Potato says, "Why the hell are you giving her money for October? That 30-year-old bitch is bullying a traumatized teenage girl. She doesn't even deserve a penny, and she needs to pay for this, and you're rewarding bad behavior. Clara deserves to rot for treating a child like that. What the fuck is wrong with her? Well done for setting boundaries. Artsy Fartsy Fox says, this, coupled with a homophobia in the first post and literally tormenting a child. I'd go full scorched earth. You gave her a warning last time and she didn't heed it. In fact, she doubled down and attacked your child directly. I wouldn't give her a dime. And I gotta say, I agree with those last two comments about not giving her any money whatsoever. She's in the background, like that comment said, tormenting a child, sending her texts and saying stuff like, oh, you're a snitch if you go and tell your mum this, just so she could continue doing it without any repercussions. Devious, horrible behavior. 30 years old doing this as well. I can honestly say if any of my family was to do this, which I know they wouldn't, to any other of my family members, they'd be cut off in an instant, because I know I wouldn't see that person the same way as I do now. Our next story comes from the Am I the Arsehole here, subreddit from Striking Current 2180 and says, am I the arsehole for telling my wife she's fucking wrong and that my mum is right? I, 35 male, have been married to my wife, 32 female, for 5 years, and we've been struggling financially for the past few months. I lost my job about 3 months ago, and while I found part-time work, it doesn't pay nearly as much as before. We've had to cut back on a lot of things, but it feels like no matter what we do, we're still living paycheck to paycheck and even pulling from savings. Recently, my mum, 65 female, came over to visit, and she noticed how stressed I was about the money situation. She offered some advice on how we could save money. Things like cutting down on takeout, meal prepping to avoid buying groceries multiple times a week, and switching to cheaper brands. My mum has always been frugal, especially when she was raising me and my siblings on a tight budget. I thought it made sense, especially since we're really trying to save wherever we can. I asked if she was willing to go through our spending and show where we could cut down. My wife agreed to this. She made a whole spreadsheet about our spending, and we are spending way too much on fun stuff. We don't need Starbucks every day and so on. It also became apparent that most of the fun spending was my wife's. To be honest, my wife didn't take the breakdown well and started arguing with my mum that her spreadsheet was wrong. She said my mum's way of doing things is outdated and doesn't work for us. She doesn't want to give up buying organic produce, and she likes having variety in what we eat each week. I tried to explain that we need to make some sacrifices if we want to get out of this financial hole, but she kept insisting that things weren't as bad as I was making them out to be, and that we just needed to ride it out. My mum left at this point, and we were still arguing, and she told me she can't give up her takeout. She also went on about my mum being wrong. That's when I lost my patience and said, you're fucking wrong, my mum is right. She managed to raise 3 kids on 1 income, and we can't even cut back on groceries for a few months. My wife got really upset, saying I'm being a huge jerk for whining with my mum, and that my mum is outdated. She's barely spoken to me since, and now I'm wondering if I went too far. But the way I see it, we need to be realistic about our situation, and my mum's advice could actually help us get back on track. And for me on this, it was one thing if you went behind your wife's back and handed over all your financial information to your mum without your wife's knowledge, but you said your wife agreed to this, and in the end, the spreadsheet doesn't lie. And it's not an outdated way of thinking. Cutting back on some things is necessary for all families sometimes. When you go through difficult moments with finances, takeout isn't a must, Starbucks isn't a must, and it's to the point that it's damaging your own health with stress, which isn't good. So this is a conversation that has to happen between you and your wife. And if she doesn't accept it, then you have to look at other things as well. It kind of just felt like she's doubling down at the moment because obviously your mum's involved and it's making her look bad because it sounds like the majority of the unnecessary spending is on your wife at this moment in time. Although I'm sure you're having takeout at the same time as her, but you're wanting to cut back, she's not. All About Bird says, not the arsehole, your wife agreed to go through your budget with your mum. Your mum took the time and effort to review things, and then it sounds like your wife was very rude and dismissive. As far as I know, math hasn't changed that much in the last 30 years, so it's not clear how much your mum's views are outdated. Another user says, info, you mentioned your own loss of a job and working part-time. Does your wife work? Is she the primary earner right now? Opie says she works part-time and doesn't wish to go full-time. It's not good for her mental health. I'm still the primary earner, even with part-time. Another user says, not the arsehole, everything your mother said still applies. If you're pulling from savings but still buying Starbucks takeout, organic groceries, streaming services, etc., it's time for somebody with some sense to start yelling. These are the actual priorities: rent, mortgage, and renters and homeowners insurance, car payment if applicable and insurance, health insurance, utilities, gas for the car, basic food, although you could look to see what you may be able to get from food banks. It sounds like your wife has never had to economize from her baseline, but she's going to have to learn. What is her plan once you run out of savings? Keep buying organic while you're couch surfing? And one more comment from OK Conversation who says, not the arsehole, and your wife needs a major reality check. Calling a sensible budget old-fashioned is beyond stupid. A budget is a budget. There's no expiration on common sense. In 2008 to 2009, when tens of thousands of people lost their jobs, myself and my husband both got laid off. We did exactly what you did. Sat down and made a budget and determined what to cut out. Eating was number one thing we dropped. My monthly pedicure went away, coupon cutting became a fucking religion. I fear for your marriage and financial future if your wife can't wrap her head around the concept of living within your means. But now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, truly. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.